Hi guys, I want to tell you one story about Russian propaganda. I know I have already told you enough stories about that, but this is a special one. This is a story about how they don't just change someone's words, twist someone's words, but how they just make things up. Last weekend, I was celebrating Easter and I went to the church with my family for the whole night till 5 a.m. And when I woke up next day, I got a surprise. The first thing I learned on Easter morning was that REN-TV, a Russian propaganda channel where I actually used to work 17 years ago, back when it was still doing journalism, aired a segment titled "Traitors, Why Did They Run Out of Money?" I am a traitor who ran out of money, you know. The piece targeted anti-war Russian journalists, actors, and musicians abroad, focusing on, in particular on the shutdown of Voice of America. They, have the whole series of so-called documentaries about those who betrayed their motherland, Russia. In this particular episode, they were talking about how miserable people who left Russia feel. It's actually one of the main propaganda narratives about anti-war Russians. If you disagree with Putin and his so-called special military operation, you can't be happy abroad. You might be very famous, but nobody needs you in America, nobody needs you in France and Germany or any other country. You will be miserable there. You will be in, survival mode. You will lose everything and you will be absolutely unhappy. That's what they concentrated on in this video. Part of it was dedicated, as I said, to Voice of America, which they called radio, by the way, although it's not a radio anymore, but who bothers fact-checking?
Маск давно призывал Трампа сделать это.
Да закройте их. Их больше никто не слушает. Это просто сумасшедшие радикальные левые, которые разговаривают сами с собой, сжигая по $1 миллиарду в год из средств налогоплательщиков США.
According to them, hundreds of unemployed journalists, including runaway propagandists, are now complaining they've lost their main source of income. It was a quote. And then they illustrated the situation with Voice of America with my personal story. The name calling and hate speech are nothing new. But what truly astonished me that they claimed that I gave them an exclusive interview. So what really happened? And here I need to admit one big mistake I made. On the day when Voice of America was shut down, I got, dozens of interview requests. And among them was a request from Verstka, a media in exile that I respect very, very much. The guy whose name was supposedly Ivan, introduced himself as a Verstka reporter and said he wanted to record an interview with me about the situation with Voice of America. And again, as I said, I made a big mistake. I was so stressed that day and I was so busy with other requests that I didn't verify him. In fact, he was not from Verstka. As you can guess, he was from REN-TV. We recorded an interview. However, I didn't give him any, juicy details. I was speaking only about facts. Again, it was a big mistake, but that will be a lesson for me and the message for you to understand what kind of methods they use. They use names of respectable media because they know people won't speak to the Russian pro-Kremlin TV. REN-TV is not officially a state channel, but it belongs to Putin's banker, Yuri Kovalchuk. I apologize to Verstka, it's my fault, but at the same time, I think it's not me who should be ashamed, who should be embarrassed. It's that young man who starts his career with lies and who can't even represent media he works for because it's shameful. I feel bad for him. So what did they do with the interview? They edited the clips in such a way that it looked like I had lost my J1 visa, which I'm not on, and could be deported back to Russia, which is a blatant lie because I'm an American citizen. And if I wasn't, I had a green card. Moreover, in this particular interview, I was talking about other people who were still on J1 visas, and I was talking about how dangerous it might be for them to be deported to such countries, for example, as Afghanistan or Belarus. Also, in the other video that was promoting that series about the traitors, they claimed I moved from Moscow to New York City, although I moved from Kiev, Ukraine, to Washington, D.C. So they didn't even bother to fact check, or they did it on purpose. Then they mistranslated my Facebook post. I wrote a post in English because I don't write in Russian almost. And I wrote that our termination emails were sent over a weekend, illustrating the style of new American administration. But in their version, I supposedly said we all felt safe, didn't expect anything, and had no plan B. That's how they translated it. Most importantly, we are not fired. We are on administrative leave due to an ongoing court case, and we're still fighting in court for the future of VOA. So this entire story, is a textbook example of how every word on Russian state TV is a lie. I had very mixed feelings when I saw that video. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So first off, I had this feeling that I was in company. I still can't believe I'm 45, and I dedicated like 25 years to my career. I'm 25 years in journalism, and I still can't believe I can be in a company of people like really famous. Because I'm not that famous. And there were people like Boris Grebenshchikov, Russian musicians like Boris Grebenshchikov and Andrei Makarevich and Tatiana Lazareva, a comedian and a TV personality. And they're really famous. Boris Grebenshchikov and Andrei Makarevich, they're like cult legendary people. And here is my story among all their stories. And so one of my feelings, as I said, I had like a mixed feeling about that. One of my feelings was like I'm in a good company, and I can't even believe that I'm in that company. And who could tell, 20 years ago, who could tell that I would be in that company in that context? It feels absolutely surreal. But at the same time, I had some people, they jokingly congratulate me with that. Like you are recognized as some significant person and so on, as they did when I was labeled a foreign agent. But they joke about it, but it's actually a sad feeling. Not even sad, it's like disturbing, and I didn't feel good about it, because it's that feeling that you are being totally rejected by your own country, and it's actually a tough thing to realize. Even after all those years, it's a tough thing to realize that your own country 100% like reject you. They label you a foreign agent. They say you are a traitor. They say you like betrayed your motherland and so on. I have a family there, and it's just a hard feeling. So that's kind of a mixture of feelings I had when I watched this video. Of course, I'm not the only one targeted, and I talked to people who were in this video as well, in this so-called documentary, and they faced it before several times, and they said just don't pay attention to that. Just keep doing what you're doing, and don't even think about it. We stopped thinking about it at some point. So that's like two feelings I had. And the third thing I wanted to tell you about, like to conclude all this story, it's actually something I started with, that this story, it's not about me. It's not about Voice of America. It's not just a personal story I wanted to share. No, it's a very important story my American audience or other foreign audience, like in other countries, need to know, because Russian propaganda is very powerful. And these stories illustrate how they, as I said, how they make things up. So please be very careful. Don't believe anything you see on Russian TV. You read on the Russian sources. I don't talk now about Russian-speaking media or blogs in exile, or journalists in exile. I'm talking about Russian media inside Russia, or Russian media created to on purpose to spread Russian narratives abroad, and we know they do it. So just be careful. My story illustrates the lie, to what extent they can lie. So my main message is just don't believe Russian TV. Don't believe Russian media. And remember, if you see something and you might think like, oh, maybe it's a different angle, maybe it's just a different point of view, just remember my story. Remember my story, and remember that it can be a lie, and it's a very high chance that it is a lie in every little detail.